What my number one takeaway is for anybody who is thinking about doing this is to audit your current branding when it comes to everything from your packaging to your delivery experience to your in-store presence.
Welcome to the Business and Pleasure of Flowers. We're your hosts, Vonda Lefevre
and Lori Wilson, and we believe that business and fun are a perfect combination. Kind of like us, Vonda.
Welcome back to the Business and Pleasure of Flowers. This is Ellie speaking. I am the co-host for today, and we're going to be talking about something that I'm personally obsessed with, which is elevating your brand in 2026. And we have the perfect guest joining us today. We have Angelique Witcher, who is the Director of Marketing for Accent Decor. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Of course. We've got a lot to catch up on, so this will be a good start.
Yes, a fun way to spend an afternoon and talking about one of our favorite things.
Yes. So before we dive in to the fun stuff, for anybody who hasn't had the pleasure of meeting you, can you give a quick background on your role at Accent Decor and what your world looks like there?
Sure. I've been with Accent Decor now a little over 8 years. I started as a part-time freelance social media content creator. So when I first started back in 2017, the world of social media looked very different than it does now, and especially in the B2B space. So while we had started dipping our toes into social media, they finally were at a place where they were wanting to grow it and see how much exposure and how much more we could get from it. And as social media grew, the role grew, Accent Decor continued to grow, and I've been really lucky to have grown as much as I have there and have worked everywhere from social media management to spearheading a lot of our partnerships and affiliations, and of course, working closely with our creative team around branding and showroom experience and just making sure that that intersection of aesthetics and strategy come together and we can best convey our experiences with intentionality and making sure that Accent Decor remains memorable with our customers.
Absolutely. And I would say, we'll talk about it in a bit, but I would say you guys do an amazing job. So I think our audience is very lucky to have you today. One thing we're going to talk about specifically that I wanted to zoom in on is Accent Decor's Floral Essentials line, Floral Essentials. But today's conversation obviously goes deeper as well. We have a lot in common. We love travel, we love good food, we love beautiful things, and most importantly, we love and appreciate good design. And recently, you taught a branding class at SAF. It was a huge hit. So one of the reasons I wanted you on today is because we do share this passion, and I think there's a lot of good insight when it comes down all the way to running a flower shop, right? All of these lessons can be applied. So where is your background with branding and design? How did you get there? Because for me, it was just naturally drawn to that world.
Same.
So I would imagine. Okay.
Same. I'm lucky with my background and having been born in France and raised by two very French parents who, thanks to that origination, I got to go back to France very often as a child. And we did a lot of traveling, and culture, architecture, fashion, design has always been something I've been super interested in. And as I've gotten older, a bigger appreciation for art and the things that influence design and understanding like symbolism and the meaning behind things. But fashion, first and foremost, was always my number one passion from the get-go. I mean, as long as I could probably talk, I wanted to talk about clothes and try things on. I would spend hours in my grandmother's closet trying on all of her fabulous get-ups and fur coats and such.
amazing.
So I went to school for fashion, more specifically fashion design and public relations. I always enjoyed the business side of things as well. I feel like fashion and design and decor allows us to use that creative side of our brain, but then I appreciate the nuances and the logistics and the processes as well. So
And how to apply it,
I know, yeah,
right?
and how to apply those. So that really is where I started, both through internships and previous jobs. I was just lucky, honestly, that when the job popped up in my LinkedIn inbox that was available at Accent Decor, I was intrigued by literally the word decor, and
Yeah.
not having much or any really of a background in the floral industry. I was
Mhm.
completely unfamiliar with the company. And I'm just glad that that was in the subject line because that's what piqued my interest and inevitably led me to apply.
I also think that it's sometimes more beneficial that you came in from the outside. You have a different perspective. Like me, I've been raised in this, like you kind of have this jaded view, but for you, you have fresh eyes, fresh perspective, especially a global influence that you then can translate into such a niche specific thing with accent decor, right? You're applying all these global perspectives. So, very fascinating.
Totally. And while I have learned so much from those like yourself and many of our friends who have been born and raised in the industry. And I think that tribal knowledge is huge. I think the combination of the two is so fun. And even
Mhm.
bringing our different backgrounds and understanding of the industry as a whole, but design, branding, marketing, messaging, media, all of those
Mhm.
things. I just love that we all get to learn from each other and collaborate with one another.
Yeah, it's so powerful. So, I want to talk for a second first about Accent Decor as a brand
Mhm.
because you have always stood out aesthetically and you guys are very good about, like you said, messaging, marketing, branding, everything as a whole, how you show up online. You're one of the strongest brand examples, I think, in our industry. So, when it came to the rebrand, were you around for the rebrand? I know that there was a shift with your visuals and everything. And then what sparked the rebrand?
Sure. Well, I'm going to give some context first around Accent Decor, and really the inception of the brand is rooted
Yeah.
in the floral industry. And while we've definitely evolved into bigger spaces within home decor and plants, planters, pots, etc., the owners, the co-founders of Accent Decor, Margaret and Frank Hoffland, both grew up around flower growing and always felt as if there was a miss in the market as far as we have all these beautiful flowers, but the vases just didn't do them justice, if you will, or the vase wasn't special enough for the arrangement. And that's really where it started. So from day one, design was always in mind. And obviously, having been in business now for going on 28 years, design has
Wow.
involved incredibly,
Yeah.
both in our actual vessels and products and in our marketing materials and obviously our website and just the
Mhm.
overall user experience, both in our showrooms and online. So as time evolved, I know the logo had changed a few times. Obviously, we've worked on our UX UI experience on the website, but it felt like about 2 years ago when we really started to realize that our customers really fit into these 3 main buckets that we call flower, plant, and home, that
Okay.
we wanted to be able to elevate the distinction between the 3, but also make sure that there was continuity among them because we're still one brand. There's a lot of crossover in our product categories as well as our customers. We know that interior designers use vessels, garden shops use pots and planters, but a lot of our most popular core pots are great for flower arranging as well, great for drop-ins.
Mhm.
So it was really important to make sure that there was some consistency across the board, but we also realized that overall, as a company and as a brand, we needed to elevate the overall experience. And when you do something like this, it's really important to make sure that all of your touch points
Mhm.
are reflecting that and that there's consistency among that. Because one of the biggest things that I think is really the tipping point for branding is that it really does influence everything: perception, pricing power, customer trust, even how confidently people engage with you and your business. I think we're all aware if we end up landing on a shoddy website, we all start to question the business a little bit. So
Yep.
when you
And the price you pay for things as well.
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
So that strong branding removes that friction, in my opinion. It communicates your value before you've even said anything to a customer. So making sure that
Yep.
all of our touch points, both digital, collateral, and in person, gave that type of feeling that we want to convey to our customers became really important. And our senior art director, Guillaume, who's a great friend of mine, has amazing background both in the wholesale industry and obviously tons of design experience as well. And he really led the charge of like, what feelings do we want to evoke? What sentiments do we want people to remember us from? And what does that look like visually?
hmm Amazing. So I would say when you were talking, when you're saying you had to make sure every touch point, every little thing when you're rebranding is cohesive, kind of reminds me of like when you're renovating a
Mm,
house and you do one room and then you realize the next room is that much more outdated.
mm.
How long did it take you guys from your initial concept to the rollout? Was it a slow process? Did you have everything ready and flip a switch?
I think a little bit of both. I think it's easier to flip a switch on the digital side, obviously. We had been working behind the scenes on some things, updating things periodically, different landing page experiences and whatnot. When I think about it, especially for your audience, everything comes down to bandwidth as well and
Yeah,
resources. So
right.
I don't think that you have to do a 0 to 100 rebrand. I think it's fun to be able to do it that way because there's a lot
Mhm.
of fun messaging and marketing that you can do around that. But a slow rebrand is just as effective. And eventually you'll start seeing the fruits of your labor. And especially when it comes to collateral and printed pieces. Obviously, I, for one, hate wasting things. So it was more of an evolution and a phase out of different catalogs or even anything like business cards, things like that. It was kind of like, okay, once we start running low or running out, then we phase into the new ones. And our showroom being the most similar to what retailers have as a storefront, we started with a few things in our showrooms probably a year to a year and a half ago at this point, and we're still making updates as each season and as each element kind of makes sense. We've been really strategic around, for instance, in January is when we do our big launch for fall, seasonal, and holiday. So right now, our visuals team's really focused on the rebranding and making sure there's consistency in the seasonal sections of our showroom. But before that, we were able to implement messaging and just an overall experience throughout the showroom that conveys what we're trying to do online and making sure that a very similar experience is happening when you're shopping with us in person.
Amazing. I think a lot of flower shops specifically, especially the interior physicality of their shop, could use upgrades,
Mm,
but I think people think it all has to be done at once, and so they don't do anything, and so what you're saying is you can change out the flooring 1 year, kinda creating a roadmap
mhm.
to your glow up.
For sure.
And like you said, it's much easier to do digitally because it's instant and it's not quite as pricey.
Depends, with
Well,
developing and
true,
whatnot,
true.
but it feels more nimble as well because you can make some changes digitally and then go back
Mhm.
if it's not coming across the way you
Right.
want to versus once you start knocking down walls or painting or putting up
True.
signs. But when I was giving the presentation back at convention, I could tell that people were intimidated by just the overall grandness of what it really can look like. And I feel like
Yeah.
there is some low-hanging fruit that people can take audit of, and that's what my number one takeaway from that message was, and really what my number one takeaway is for anybody who is thinking about doing this is to audit your current branding when it comes to everything from your packaging to your delivery experience to your in-store presence, the way that your customers are greeted, all of that is part of your branding. And I think that many florists underestimate branding because they're so focused on the craft, but
Mhm.
their artistry is the brand. The vessels,
Mhm.
the photography, the language they use, the delivery experience. And I think as long as you are being clear and consistent, it will be compelling for your customers. And there are ways to do that without breaking the bank. And I think one of the best ways to really take inventory, figuratively and literally, of your branding is to talk to your best customers or those who've worked with you or just started working with you and asking them, how do you describe our business in
Mm.
3 adjectives? Or how would you explain our business in 60 seconds? And if you start to see inconsistencies in that, then you really need to take note and realize that most of that at the core is either lack of branding or lack of strategy behind the branding that you have in place.
And you're muddying the waters rather than
Mhm.
showing up consistently everywhere.
Mhm.
I love that. The other thing that you had us do in that session, I think, was set a reminder
Mhm.
for a brand check-in.
Mhm.
Can you touch on that for a second?
Yeah, I think what I always realize when we attend those sessions or even when you listen to a business podcast is how you'll feel really invigorated and energized by an idea in the moment, but then we all go
Mhm.
back to our lives, our businesses, and we're no longer in our convention bubble.
Yeah.
And inevitably things go to the wayside and you lose track of it. So I had recommended that those who were attending the session put a reminder in their phone a week from that day that would remind them to take inventory and to do the audit or have a team meeting around it, or depending on the size of the business, some of them have a marketing professional on their team,
Mhm.
and get the conversation started. I know that we're all in the midst of a very busy season, both personally and professionally. And then before we know it, it'll be Super Bowl, Valentine's Day time. So it never feels like a good time, but it's something that I think can really attribute so much both to new customer growth and customer life value.
Yeah. And for a lot of these small businesses, it can make or break you because everybody is so visual these days. And I think there is such a competitive landscape with how you show up
Mhm.
online and in person. I have a couple small things I just thought of when it comes to branding and that quote unquote branding. It's not just aesthetically what you see. I think that's a big misconception. It can be as simple as maybe next week you decide if not everybody is answering the phone the same at your business, like get a consistent, very chipper or whatever tone you want to set. Everybody answers the phone the same. I think that's very basic, simple upgrade that they can make.
Mhm.
Another one that I've always thought of is leaning into a color. It doesn't have to be a whole color palette. Just pick a color and then whether it's your gift wrapping or your shopping bags or things like that, if you can have like a strong color, I've always thought that like that could be really powerful when it comes to brand recognition, right?
Mhm.
Of course, we can go down a whole rabbit hole of color psychology and Tiffany and Coca-Cola and all that. But
Mhm.
those are two like fun little things. Like get your team all consistent with how they speak
Mm.
and pick a color
We're
if you don't have one.
actually doing a lot of what you're mentioning as far as your team and how your team is messaging and communicating your brand, whether it's in a greeting or within the shopping experience for our showrooms. And we're really seeing a need both to train and retrain our teams on making sure that everybody understands not only the ethos of Accent Decor, but our brand story and be able to speak to your brand and your company and what you stand for, whether you're able to identify specific brand pillars or there are important milestones within your brand that are important for your customers to know and understand, so that everybody, regardless of who they talk to at your company, are able to convey that same messaging. And that is really powerful,
Oh,
especially when different people are answering the phone or different people are greeting and whatnot. I think that there's a lot to be said for that. And I think for any of us who've been in any sort of retail shopping store experience, we've all been on the receiving end of a not so pleasant or not so great.
oh yeah.
Um,
Oh, and more,
yeah,
I would say.
unfortunately.
So the more that they can step it up. And also, you do a really good job of the power of story when it comes to the origin story of Accent Decor. And I think that's something that our listeners could really learn from, because people are such emotional buyers,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to flowers. And the more that you can lean into, we're a 50-year-old business, our founder, blah, 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 the more that they can be bought into your story, that's also branding. That's also representing
Mhm.
your brand how you want it and capturing those customers.
There's something to be said, I think more and more people love a peek behind the curtain. People
Mm,
love anytime we do anything behind the scenes, how it's made, whether it's artisans handcrafting
I
product.
love
Oh, I mean,
watching
it's
that.
that is my personal ASMR. I could
Yeah.
it all day long, whether our glass blowers are making large scale glass structures or watching metal workers, or even just seeing how our showroom team puts together
Mhm.
installations in our showroom, or
Yes.
how floral designers are putting together the arrangements for our photo shoots. Like, everybody loves to see that. And if there are parts of your business that really lend themselves to that, I mean, that's something that I just really see as, first of all, just like a content gold mine from a
Mm.
just digital content,
Getting the content.
getting
Yeah.
it and putting it out there. I think there's so many ways to repurpose it, both in emails and other types of touch points while outside of social media. And that visual upgrade and just that consistency and your customers becoming familiar with your story and understanding what's important to you and what your values are. For us, being family owned and operated is a huge anchor of our business. The fact
Yeah.
that we work with global artisans and pride ourselves on our in-house designs and the quality of those designs is something that, if you're familiar with Accent Decor, it would be, remiss for you not to know that about us.
Right. And people know what they're putting their money towards, I think, and people want to support that. They feel good about that. You're not just another line item on their invoice. So that leads perfectly into talking about Accent Decor's Floral Essentials line. Design shows up everywhere, from the way you show up online to your packaging to the vessels that you choose.
Mhm.
So I want to know about the Floral Essentials line, because to me, this just makes so much sense. So, what inspired the creation of it? What were you seeing as a need in the market when it comes to
So
it?
the origination of it more came out of a desire to give accessibility and an easier shopping experience for our customers. It wasn't originally us reinventing the wheel from a product standpoint. If anything, Floral Essentials, the foundation of that product came from our best sellers, and they really are our best sellers at the end of the day. We wanted to make sure that form, function, price point, durability lended itself in a way that our retail florists, our florists who rely a lot on delivery, knew that they were
Mhm.
getting high quality products with really intriguing price points to help them build better margins and to allow them to have quicker ways of shopping that, not only on our website, but within our showrooms or even in our catalog. They know that they can shop floral essentials by color, by material, price point, opening size.
Love the opening size. I think that,
I mean, I think no florist would disagree with that. We all know that a 4-inch vase necessitates a different stem count than a 6-inch vase. And
yep.
that all goes right back to your bottom line. And different companies and different floral designers cater to different customers with different price points. And then I feel like this allows our customers to shop those arrangement ready vessels much more efficiently. We've been able to kind of make a subcategory brand around it, and it's been really successful, and it's grown in the sense of we add to it each time we do a product launch, but we're really particular around making sure that it still fits within those parameters that our retail florists are really honing in on when it comes to finding those vessels for floral deliveries, Valentine's Day, and other special occasions.
Yeah, I think also because when it comes to inventory control, I know at Flower Click, like, we use a limited number of vessels because they are so versatile. You're not having them sit on shelves dusty forever. With these bottom lines of these floors, it's so important to have things that you're using constantly. The other thing that you talked to me about was the deliverability of it, where they're not these, like, tiny bases. You can deliver them successfully.
Mhm.
I know it's so small, but we did a photo shoot with, like, all these little tiny vases, and everybody's like, "Nope, we're not using that. We can't deliver that."
Mm.
So,
It's a
I think that's really important. I
I
think you
think
guys hit all the main points that a florist needs with that line.
we're lucky that with the relationships that we have in the industry, we garner so much customer and user feedback, and we're obviously really intentional about going out there for feedback as well. We always
Mhm,
love to know what's missing. Like, what are you reaching for, whether it's for an event or for a floral delivery or day to day that you're thinking, "Ugh, if I just had this 4-inch round low that I
yep,
could be able to arrange XYZ in there, I would buy 100 of them," and we can't always bring every idea to fruition, but the more we start hearing the same things or we start
yeah,
seeing patterns, there's a resurrection, if you will, in silver. We know gold was so
mm,
dominant and still is for the most part, but we know that silver is trending again and is starting to see that peak back up. So slowly but surely, once we started seeing that both in our trend explorations and customer requests, we've started bringing some silver pieces back into the line. And I use that as a small example, but we love getting feedback. One other example I think of is the uptick in dried florals and preserved
mm,
florals, and whether you specialize in those or that's just part of your product offering. We have customers who've shared with us that stems need to be placed a very specific way in order to maximize the opening size, but you actually want it pretty tight so that it holds
mhm,
everything in place. I've learned so much by getting that type of feedback. Our product development team keeps this ongoing log and figures out different ways that we can bring those things to market. And Floral Essentials, especially as it's grown, we also love taking our best sellers, our tried and true, the ones that people always come back for. And for instance, our scallop compote is a really popular compote, both for events and floral deliveries. We've brought in it in
mhm,
silver this past
mm,
season. We're seeing a lot of browns and richer tones. So while everybody's familiar with the clear Billy bottle, we brought it in amber because everybody is starting to layer in those warmer, richer tones into some of their designs. There's also the benefit of not seeing dirty water, things like that.
yeah.
It's it's all coming from a place of wanting it to be as functional, practical, and smart as it can be.
And you guys do a really great job of balancing that where it's efficient and smart, but also you are at the forefront of trends. And so for a florist, they can look to you and then incorporate some of those more fun, trendy pieces, keep them ahead of the game as well. And I think you guys just do a fantastic job of balancing the two worlds.
I think so too. I absolutely can take zero credit for that. Our product development team is so talented and they really are constantly, whether it's going places in person, seeing what people are leaning towards, what retailers are already carrying versus what we're seeing online, what's coming down the runway, what are the colors of the year that are coming around. There are moments where we're definitely maybe a couple of steps too much ahead and it's taken customers a minute to
Hmm.
pick up the trend. I'm trying to think of an idea of that, but there've been a few where we were maybe just a
You're
little bit
a year
too
or
much
two
ahead
ahead.
of the curve, and then but now it's like the trend. I'm really trying to think of an example that we've had recently. I, for one, love working for a company that I know everyone is looking to as that North Star of what's next.
Yep.
What do I need to know? What are my brides gonna be asking for?
Mhm.
What are we
In a very practical application. You
Mhm.
guys have the physicality of it, I think, is so important. It's not just a trend that you see, but you guys apply it and make it super easy. for them to incorporate it into their business. And like you said, what their brides are asking for, what their customers want, staying competitive, all of those things is super important. Another topic, we don't have to touch on this for long, but the idea of luxury branding. To me, you guys are a luxury brand, but you're attainable. And I think there's a really fine balance between not being the Hermes of containers, but looking in a certain way. You guys are elevated, right? And I think there's this like juxtaposition that I always have, this internal battle of like branding flower shops in a way that's very high end and luxury, but without taking away from the customer that wants a $79, not scaring them away. Do you have any insight into like how you guys approach, or you personally approach, that fine line of showing up in a way that feels luxurious without scaring people away? I guess it's a very loaded question.
I think it ladders back to the beginning of our conversation. I think that the consistency in your branding already elevates you and already shows that you are confident and established in what it is that you're wanting to convey. And if it comes across as luxe, then great. I think that we come across as modern, trend forward, and our tagline in a lot of instances is design forward products at attainable prices, because our badass merchandising and supply chain team, once our product development team designs the vessels, then it is their job to make sure that we do keep on trend, that we do bring the glazes and the colors and the shapes that everyone's looking for. And I think, especially in events, the proportions and the scale, and then making sure that we're bringing it at the best prices and at the best quality that we possibly can. So luxury today for me isn't all about price. I think it's more about the intentionality and the experience. And I think that it really does circle back to what you're able to convey on your website versus your store experience. Even your customer service is what will either make someone feel that or not.
Or not. Yeah.
And I mean, in
love
the
that.
floral retail side of things, luxury really shows up in presentation. It's the vessel, the packaging, the color stories, and that
The photography.
and that reveal, if you will, when somebody receives your flowers.
Yep. Amazing. So before I let you go, I need to know the inside scoop. You said everyone loves a good behind the scenes, and I would love to know, do you have anything to share regarding Valentine's Day, spring summer launch, anything new or noteworthy that you would like to mention?
Well, a couple things. So specific to Valentine's Day, hot off the press, and I believe Flower Click listeners will be among the first, if not the first, to know that or hear this before we officially launch. But starting December 12th, we are going to start running a Valentine's Day promotion on some essential vessels that we know everybody loves to lean into for the holiday. So you'll be able to shop all of that online starting December 12th. I feel like everybody will be really excited about the opportunity for better prices and better margins, especially on a holiday that is so essential to their business. So keep watching that.
December 12th.
December 12th. And it will be
Love that.
a kind of a sale on sale concept is really all I can.
Okay.
Some good deals. So get ready to shop.
Awesome.
We launch new everyday collections twice a year, typically in January and June to go around our market times. And we will be launching some new event pieces. There are two new, one in particular, oversized arch that I'm really excited for everybody to see, and some other more modern arches, as well as compotes and bud vases and some everyday pieces. But those will be launched
Amazing.
January 5th. and everybody can shop those online at that point. A bunch of them will already be in stock in time for launch. So it'll be some instant gratification, which I know people will be excited about. And something that I'm really excited about that we're doing in our showrooms in celebration of our arches and our stands is partnering with a bunch of different floral farms and growers that are essentially partnering with us to put together floral installations on our arches in our showrooms so that we can continue the reputation that we have for having only fresh florals and plants in our showrooms during market time. It's always
Wow.
so interesting to me that people will second guess it, and so much so like go and grab a petal, and I'm like, yeah, no, it's real. It's
Real.
real. Please don't hurt it. But we're working with a bunch of our friends in the floral industry, everybody from Jet Fresh to Choice Farms, Alexandra Farms, Rosa Prima, to name a few. I still have a couple others who are getting back to me, and we're
Amazing.
celebrate our growers and fresh florals and also showcase how these arches and stands can be used in so many ways. So if you're not able to come and see them in person in the showrooms, there'll be plenty of ways for you to experience them online and on social media. But it's a project I'm really excited about and just really gets us back to our roots of celebrating the flower industry.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So exciting. And that's the month of January?
Yes.
That'll be?
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll have Atlanta market and Las Vegas market mid and late January.
Amazing. And to find Accent Decor, shout them out on social.
So social, we're Accent Decor Inc., all one word.
Okay.
And if you're interested in going on our website, registering as a customer to take advantage of wholesale pricing and to be able to see availability and shop online, it's just accentdecor.com.
Awesome. Angelique, this was incredible. Thank you for sharing your insight and everything that Accent Decor brings to the industry. As you head into 2026, we hope today's conversation inspires you to elevate, refine, and show up with a brand that reflects the beauty that you create. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We hope you enjoyed spending time with us because we enjoy spending time with you. If you did, make sure you hit that subscribe button or add the Business and Pleasure of Flowers to your Google morning routine or your flash briefing on Alexa. We look forward to seeing you next week.
So please come back and join us and discover how a bit of knowledge and one small change in your mindset can take you to new levels in your life and business.